Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for the issue we're about to cover. We are continuing our Chris Claremont run of the Uncanny X-Men, number 154 from 1981. And after a few guest pencilers, Dave Cockrum has returned. Here we have a cover featuring Storm, Cyclops, and Corsair fighting. Oh, you'll have to forgive me. We'll get it inside. These villains here, or these creatures here. How I came through with this story was through Classic X-Men, number 58. I have recently started going through and getting all of my of these into the actual X-Men stories as I can afford them. So, great cover here by Mike Mignola, or Mignola as some people will say. All right, here we have our team here: Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum, Bob Wyacek, and Joseph Rubinstein. So don't know exactly if Wyacek and Rubinstein are doing the inks while Cockrum is penciling, or if there's just tag teaming. So the story is called Reunion. Louise Jones, who will turn into Louise Simonson, is still the editor. Also, Tom Marzikowski is still off, and also we have a different colorist. So we have a different letterer and a different colorist. So Storm and Cyclops, you see Cyclops has returned here, are playing a game here. It's a style of handball, but they're using their powers, and you get that from these things. And Storm gets a point here, and you can see here, instead of handball, they're using their powers here. I really enjoy these boots that Dave Cockrum gives Cyclops. I don't know. Captain America would wear these boots also. I don't know what their actual name is. If somebody knows, just leave it in the comment what the type of boots that these would be. And so you can see here that the point system, Storm is 15 and Scott 14 here. So, and she says, "My advantage, Scott. One more point and I win the game." And Cyclops says, "I'll believe that when I see it, Ororo. So far, neither of us has ever been more than a point ahead of the other. Oh, brother." And she picks up the ball and she says, "Tired?" And he says, "Exhausted. You look pretty bushed yourself." And she says, Playing is hard work, but I've still strength enough to beat you." And you can see that they're sweating here. "Enough to try at any rate," says Cyclops. You serve, Scott." And so here Cyclops uses his power on the ball. Storm, of course, uses her power on the ball. And Storm says here, "You know, Scott, this method of honing our powers may be cruder than the Danger Room, but it is also much more fun." And he says, "Thank Wolverine for the idea, though he and Nightcrawler usually play for beer. I think at last count, Nightcrawler owed him a truckload." And so he thinks, "Aha, the last volley threw Storm a fraction off balance. She's given me the opening I was looking for." And so he uses his power, and you can see here, just he fires multiple times, and the ball goes through. And Storm says, "Your point. We're tied once more. That was a very nice and nasty move, Scott. Wolverine would have been proud of you." And he says, "Consider it my swan song. I'm beat." And she says, "I too. Shall we call this a draw? The latest in a series. The games I win with experience the games I win with experience are balanced by the ones you win with skill and vice versa. You're very good." And she says, "You sound surprised." And Cyclops says, "I like being the best. It's not easy getting used to having a rival, much less an equal. Come on, let's hit the showers," says Cyclops. And so we get a brief interlude here. Now, um, we here is the Voyager, and I think this is supposed to be Saturn that it is crossing. And so Voyager 2 during this time was going through Saturn, but Voyager 2 is actually out past the Kuiper Belt. Voyager 2 has left the solar system. So, and I truly don't think Dave Cockrum knows how to draw ships. This looks like a duck. Maybe that's what the Shi'ar. I know the Shi'ar are bird-like creatures, but so here Chris Claremont is letting us know where it is. The Voyager is going to Uranus in 1986, which is more in the future, but here in 2024, it's gone. So it actually has, like I said, left the solar system, and this ship looks like a duck. So here we have Corsair, Christopher Summers. We know he is Cyclops' father, but Cyclops does not know that he is his father. So he's heading toward Earth. And Corsair says, "I'm almost at the end of a journey I never thought I'd make. I never thought I'd make. I wish the circumstances were different, but if it were, I probably wouldn't be here. Funny, as a kid, I've always dreamed of exploring space. My dream came true at the cost of everything I held dear. And if I had to do it all over again," and then he pauses and he says, "The scanners, a Shi'ar dreadnought, they found me." So we don't know what he was going to say. Maybe he was going to say he would still do it again. Maybe he'd say it's not worth it. We don't know. Also, we have a lot of exposition. I have a playlist we have covered through the use of classic X-Men, while there were backup stories and extra pages. And there were Corsair stories in there. So feel free to check that out. You get more stuff through classic X-Men than you did through regular X-Men. Classic X-Men, when during the first 40 issues or so, was just chock full of stuff. Afterwards, it just became a straight up reprint issue. So, all right. And now we are returning to Earth, and this is, of course, that where Magneto he had his base. You can see it in X-Men 150. He has since abandoned it, and here we have Professor Xavier, Colossus. We have Colossus' little sister, and Dr. Corbeau, who is always hanging around with the X-Men. And so he says, "You need a hand with those crates, Colossus?" And he says, "No, Dr. Corbeau, when I'm in my armored form, my strength is quite considerable. I can easily handle this load, but your offer is appreciated." And Professor Xavier says, "Those computer elements go to the laboratory, Peter." And so in Russian, his sister, Ilyana, or I think, says, I know where that is, Piotr," and says his whole name. "I will show you the way." He says, "Lead on." I love how it says "this side up." And so you see here Nightcrawler teleports. He says, "This land is so ancient, so alien. We know virtually nothing about it," he thinks. "I wonder if it's safe haven for Ilyana or the X-Men." And Professor X answers him back telepathically, "Considering how often the security of our mansion has been breached of late, Nightcrawler, would it have been any safer to remain at home? I doubt it." And he, out loud, Nightcrawler says, "Professor, you read my thoughts." And he says, "I apologize, Kurt, but they were so obvious and so strong I couldn't help it. You know, there's a growing anti-mutant sentiment in the States. I fear from what I've learned recently that it may may have official sanctions for the moment. It is simply too dangerous to remain in Westchester. Also, this island was one of Magneto's primary installations. Most of his recordings are intact. It is an unparalleled opportunity to learn about our arch foe. The benefits, I believe, far outweigh the risks. I hope so. I hope so. And then, to be honest, her professor, this place gives me the creeps. And so, in another area, we have Carol Danvers here, who we have covered, and it is in my X-Men playlist, Avengers Annual 9. And then, of course, the previous issue, which would have been yesterday's video, where she has been staying with the X-Men here. And so she's looking out, and it's windy. This is why her hair doesn't look like this. This is wind. And we get a little bit of what's been going on here, but like I said, I have a playlist. Go check it out. Perhaps it would have been better if I had died. I feel so cut off from everything, everyone. The more I learn and remember. And we continue here. The more I realize how much I've truly lost can never be regained. And someone here we can see by the gloves, Wolverine taps her in the shoulder. Major. And who? Wolverine. It's funny. She's now Captain Marvel, but she was a Major. Shouldn't she be Major Marvel? You startled me. I didn't hear you approach. No one ever does, Wolverine says. Pardon my asking, but didn't we meet a few years ago? And Wolverine says, yeah, when you were Air Force Intelligence and I was Canadian Secret Service. You and your partner, Colonel Mike Rossi, and me ran some pretty hairy capers together. Those were good times. And you can see she's getting flustered here. And she says, I don't remember. Not you, not the missions, not even Rossi. I loved him, Wolverine, yet I can't picture his face, hear his voice, and when I think of him, I feel nothing. As she's just super angry. And she goes, sorry, I didn't mean to come apart like that. And Wolverine said, it's all right. And then you see Kitty Pryde coming through, and he's like, blast. Here's the thing, it's not that I just love how instead of saying damn or anything else, I truly do like it when they would use the opposite, like blast. And he goes, what is it, Kitty? That was the wrong wall to face through and the wrong time to do it. And she goes, oh yeah, I see that. Professor sent me to find you. You've done that now. Scram, I'm busy. And Carol, I think he was supposed to draw a tear there, but he goes, go Wolverine, I'll be fine, really. So whatever that moment was, it's over. So again, we're back here with the flying duck here. And here's the moon, and Earth is there. Some screen tones being used. And Corsair says, come on, old bus, hold it together. This is the home stretch. Don't fail me now. No contacts on my scope. I must have ditched the battleship in the asteroid belt like I figured. And suddenly he goes and says, plasma torpedoes coming ahead from me. The Shi'ar. I underestimated them. The moment they lost me, they must have come straight here. They're using their main batteries. My shield won't hold against that kind of firepower. Corsair, my lad, you're reputed to be the best pilot in space. Here's your chance to prove it. So I like how they have this, how they do this plasma torpedoes. I like that. And so back at the mansion here, and Cyclops and Storm are gonna share a meal together. And Cyclops thinks here, I must say I've outdone myself, though when it comes to cooking, my standards are pretty low. Dinner's ready, Ororo, he says out loud. And she went to get the mail and used her powers. That's funny. I have the mail, Scott. And he says, anything interesting? Bills, magazines, circulars, the usual. Oh, here's a postcard from Kitty, says a Storm. Just flying and using all that power just to go get the mail. So, What are circulars? Are those, is that what we refer to as junk mail? I wonder. And she says here, having a wonderful time. Wish you were here. How eloquent, because that's of course what everybody says. Ah, kitten. She tried for a Caribbean tan and got sunburned. Instead, she's practicing her dancing. She's determined to be in the piece her teacher Stevie Hunter's choreographing. I must tell Stevie that. Everyone is well, though Carol seems quite depressed. And Cyclops says, that must be some postcard. And she says, Kitty writes very small. And she says, what is that? And she says, a letter from Emma Frost, Massachusetts Academy, officially revoking Kitty's admission. The White Queen was as good as her word. It's too late in the term. It would be too disruptive for Kitty's parents to transfer her anywhere else. So Xavier School has her for at least one more year. And Storm says, you underrate yourself. This is all quite delicious. He says, thanks. Scott, you called me your rival earlier. Am I? Do you wish to reclaim your old position as team leader? And instead of answering, he asks her, and he says, do you wish to give it up? And he says, I'm not certain I took it. She says, sorry. I'm not certain. I took it reluctantly. The responsibility frightened me. But over the months, I have grown to accept it. I'm good at it, though I concede you are the best. And Cyclops says, again, thanks, but to be honest, I'm not sure I want the job back. So much has changed, is changing in my life. I feel like I'm at a crossroads. And then he stops and looks back and says, good Lord. And she's like, that roaring sound. And Cyclops says, what the blazes is happening? So it looks like we have some kind of crash. And nope, it's just entering through the atmosphere. Here comes the flying duck. And I'm sorry, that's what it looks like. And she she says, a flying duck. No, I'm kidding. It says a spacecraft, but Cyclops says, careful, it's scattering debris all over the lawn. It's heading for the lake. And so it wouldn't make a crash. Shouldn't it make like a splash sound? So I miss Tom Orzechowski. He's a great letterer. Top 3 with John Workman and Kevin Kline. So the X-Men or the X-Men, Cyclops and Storm come, and apparently they had scuba gear ready to go. And Storm says, someone must have seen or heard its approach. However will we explain this, she says. And so you can see here. You're the boss, Ororo. I'm sure you'll think of something. And she says, wonderful. There's the pilot. And so he's still alive. Scott, I recognize. Me too. It's Corsair. And so in her thoughts, she goes, and I fear the time has come to break my oath never to reveal to you the truth about him. And suddenly, lords of the earth and air, as we have some more stuff coming through the horizon. Ororo, I think we can forget about explanations. And so we get a bit of the origin of Corsair. Feel free to go into playlist or check out the website that I posted through to this story. It'll give you, like I mentioned, plot synopsis and character bios. So if you want to know more, feel free to go in there. I'm just going to kind of move it along here. So basically, it's a quick origin of Corsair. And so right now, they take him into the room. He says, good evening, Cyclops. Pardon my dropping in unannounced. And Cyclops says, can the snappy patter, Corsair, explain this locket and these Air Force dog tags? The woman's face is familiar, and the 2 boys are me and my brother Alex. And Corsair says, the tags are mine, Scott. The woman is my wife. The children are my sons. And, of course, this is where Cyclops finds out. He says, you're lying. And Storm says, Scott, forgive me. But he is not. So she confers that he is her father. And Cyclops says, how the blazes do you know, Storm? And suddenly, look out, as these creatures here called Sidrian hunters go through and begin shooting, kind of like an optic blast, similar to Cyclops, and it makes a sound shriek. It's me they're after, Corsair says. They'll have to wait their turn until I get some answers, Corsair. You are mine, and he uses his Cyclops, his optic beam. Suits me, but we can't stay here. We need room to maneuver as he begins to shoot. Follow me downstairs, orders Cyclops. And Storm says, more of them. And Cyclops says, they're pouring through every window in the house. You seem to know these horrors, Corsair. How do we fight them? And Corsair says, their primary weakness is intense heat. My blasters slow them down. A good-sized fusion bomb would rupture the matrix. You wouldn't happen to have one handy, would you? A fusion bomb. And Storm thinks, on the surface, Corsair jests, yet his undertone is deadly serious. If he possessed such a weapon, he would use it, regardless of the cost to the surrounding community. What sort of man is he? We need time to regain our balance, to think and plan. It's up to me to provide it, she says, or thinks. These are thought balloons, and I miss them. I think they should come back. So here she creates her great wind. Kind of, you can see her creating a mess. So this poor mansion has been through the ringer. Here you see them all using their powers here. And Corsair says the Sidrians are freelancers working for bounty. The Imperial Shi'ar would never use them, so it's unlikely they came from the Dreadnought, he says. That leaves the opposition, the traitors who kidnapped Lilandra, he continues to think. And Cyclops says, my father, alive. As a kid, I dreamed of this. I prayed for it. Now that it's happened, I feel, and then he pauses, happy, angry, mostly numb, he says. I don't know what to do or say. And you can see Storm here. Scott is trying to hide it, but his emotions are tearing him apart. And it is partly my fault. Blessed goddess, I kept silent about Corsair to spare him pain, only to have caused him greater pain. And he says, what next? And Cyclops says, you tell me, fight or run? And she says, run. We need the other X-Men. We must draw these monsters away before innocent civilians become involved, says Storm. And Cyclops says, we'll use the Blackbird. I'll call you over our microtransceivers when we're ready to lift off. And I shall come. And then she thinks, if I'm able. And Corsair says, what is she talking about? And Cyclops begins to run. Storm's acting as our rear guard to buy us the time we need to reach the plane. And Corsair goes, one woman against the Sidri? And Cyclops says, it's the only way. Come on. And so you see him jump on this. Man, the money that Xavier must have. You can't leave her, says Corsair. The hangar's a mile down this tunnel, hidden beneath a copse on the estate. That means it's a group of trees. Security sensors indicate neither hangar nor tunnel have been breached. This monocar will have us there in a couple of minutes. And he says, you cold-blooded, they'll tear her apart. We have to help her. She's your friend, Scott. Don't you care? And, of course, he thinks of her. Storm, Ororo. And then he punches her. Or punches Corsair. Yes, he yells. But I'll leave her just the same. Just as I'd expect her to leave me. And here you see Storm. The Sidri are generating additional armor, making them themselves more resistant to my lightning bolts. And the strain is beginning to wear me down. I cannot maintain this effort much longer, she thinks. And so now aboard, I love it, Kitty's dragon. The blood. Scanners read all clear topside. All I have to do is pop the surface hatch, firewall the throttles, and we're on our way. And so Storm says, Cyclops through the comm says, Storm, this is Cyclops. Time to go. And she thinks, not a moment too soon. I haven't tried this maneuver in ages. I hope it works. And so you can see her kind of creating some water here. And basically, she's sort of using, what she's doing is making it colder so that the humidity condenses, and then using that water against them. And so off she goes to the hangar. This is why both Scott and I knew I had to stay, because wherever the Blackbird went, I could follow once she was airborne. Scott could not. And so here goes the Blackbird, and here comes those Siri. My lord! And they've destroyed the mansion. So Cyclops thinks, Charles loved that old house. I did too. It was the only real home I remember. It'll break his heart to see it like this. Real quick, this ink, I know that back then they really put ink just about anywhere, but I'm not too thrilled of it. I think it looks, I don't know, a little like it doesn't need to be there. So, all right, so you can see the Seedry sort of building themselves other. And so they're becoming like a ship now, like one. So they're merging. So off they go, and so here we have an FAA, like a traffic control, and he goes, "Trouble, Phil," says one guy. "Unidentified contact, Roy. Popped out of nowhere. In Westchester. Vector is due south, toward the city at low altitude. It won't acknowledge my transmission." And he says, "I'll alert the Air Force." And then he pauses. "Good grief, what the heck is that?" "I don't know, but it's as big as a skyscraper." And so I love the screen tones being used. And it's barreling full tilt toward the most crowded airspace on Earth. And so it barely misses this airplane here. And so the Blackbird's trying to get away, but that thing is coming after them. So it technically should destroy this bridge. It probably wouldn't try to avoid it, but anyway, so it's going down the East River and it's getting shot at. And one of them says, most likely Corsair here. "I may be stating the obvious, lad, but this is hardly the way to safeguard innocent lives." And Cyclops says, "Thanks, Pop. I needed that." And so he thinks here, "We can't use conventional weapons. They're too dangerous for to others and too difficult to control. But that doesn't mean we're helpless, far from it. I've been waiting for a chance to test this experimental windshield. It looks like this is it." So this windshield basically allows him to fire his optic blast through it. So, and he ends up hitting the ship here. And you see the zap. So, and so he's hitting it again, but so are they. They're shooting here. And Corsair says, "A nice try, Scott, but when the Sindri merge into their ship matrix, their bond that links them is almost impossible to break." And he says, "Suppose we disrupt that matrix. What good will that do us?" And most likely Corsair. It's really hard because we can't see here. A violent dissolution will act like a gigantic short circuit. It'll stun them long enough for us to escape, or perhaps even destroy them. But shattering the matrix requires a phenomenal amount of energy. I doubt you can hack it alone. And Cyclops says, "Let's give it our best shot anyway. But when it's down, we'll run," he says. So, all right, so off they go. And these two are having dinner. It looks like candlelight dinner. And there goes the Blackbird. "Very nice flying, son. I couldn't have done better myself. The name is Cyclops, mister. You haven't the right to call me anything else," he says. So he's a little miffed here. "Scott, the forces of nature are often far greater than the woman who summons them. If you keep hammering away at the Sindri while I create a gale, it's worth a try, Ododo. But we're both pretty tired. Can you maintain total control over your storm?" asked Cyclops. "I shall have to, shan't I?" Storm says. "Good luck," says Cyclops. So off we go. And so Storm leaves the Blackbird here To do what is necessary, I must warp weather patterns throughout the New York metroplex. The effects of such an atmospheric trauma will be felt for days, perhaps longer, and they may be severe. Yet if I do nothing, we three are doomed. Are our lives worth endangering the city? And if the answer is yes, are we not then in danger of following the same arrogant path that Magneto trod? So often it seems we must choose not between good and bad, but between the lesser of two evils. And you can see her using her power to hit this thing. And again, some screen tones here. I love screen tones whenever they're used. So the lightning bolt was to draw the thing's attention and fire. It seems my ploy is completely successful. So you can see here this thing shooting at Storm and missing her. I must ride the winds with all my speed and skill. I am a far smaller and agile target than the Blackbird, but I also lack its armor and defenses. It might survive a direct hit. I most certainly would not, she says. So, and here comes the NYPD helicopter, but it is completely destroyed here. Storm, can you help them? Easily, Cyclops. Provided you keep our foe occupied. So she's using her wind powers to make them sort of land safely. So relax your officers. Relax your bodies, officers. I will not let you fall. So she catches them. I will have you safely on the ground in a matter of moments. Who are you, lady? I am Storm, an X-Men, and a friend. So she drops them off here and goes back here. The battle must be ended quickly. The longer it continues, especially here, the greater the probability of innocents being harmed. The wind patterns I set in motion have formed a cyclone around the Sindri. Excellent. Now I must intensify it. Unless the fabric of the Matrix craft is immensely strong, they must flee or be destroyed. So you can see here how her plan is working here. I wonder, do my questions, my doubt, make me the wrong person to lead the X-Men? I wonder if Scott is free of them. So here you can see the Sidri sort of beginning to fall apart here. Magnificent. That is a one-in-a-lifetime sight, boy. The Matrix is losing its cohesiveness. One hard punch should disruptive completely. And so here goes the Blackbird right through it, and so they are now separate. These guys are running through to evacuate here. A petroleum storage facility. Perfect, Cyclops. You couldn't have chosen a more ideal site if you tried. The Matrix is now in shock. It's vulnerable. The most effective weapon against it is heat. Blast that tank farm, set the oil afire, and the explosion is sure to kill it. Number one, that is a lot of pollution, but hey, kill those things, apparently. So, and Cyclops says, kill it? You mean that thing's alive? I thought it was a construct mechanism. And Corsair says, it is a colony creature, living and sentient. So what? I won't kill Corsair. And Corsair says, there's no time for scruples, boy. It has no compunction about killing you or anyone else who gets in its way. And Corsair, sorry, I thought it was Storm, but Corsair continues, you sanctimonious fool, we can't let it reintegrate. We've only seconds to act. And Storm says, seconds before what? Storm, stop him. Why, Corsair, don't. And he fires out, I'm sorry, but I've no alternative. I fought these things. You haven't. This is the only way, believe me. So he sets the oil refinery on fire with a huge explosion and a lot of pollution. So what about the workers? What about the refinery worker, Corsair? The firemen who risked their lives to extinguish that place. The cost and pollution to the environment. Did you consider that? Did you care? Callous as it sounds, Cyclops, all of that is negligible, even expendable. You worry about a few score lives. I'm trying to save the world. This world, he says. You are correct, Corsair. It is callous and cruel and inhuman. Then I guess so am I, he says. So, all right, mister, drop the other shoe. Explain yourself. Why does the Earth need saving and from whom? And so we're finally going to get an explanation as to why all this is happening. 10 standard days ago, a meeting of the Shi'ar Grand Council was raided by terrorist commando force. Most of the ministers were slaughtered in the attack, some executed, even after they'd surrender. So here we can see that. And so Lilandra was kidnapped. My Starjammers and I were implicated, and the trail left by the terrorists led straight to Earth. A fast battle force led by Chancellor Araki and Admiral of the Fleet Lord Samedar set out to immediately rescue her. Lead elements of the force have already arrived in local Earth space. They're prepared to go to any lengths to liberate their princess or avenge her, and if in that process they have to reduce the Earth to a lifeless, burned out cinder, so be it. So, next issue, Deathbird. So, pretty exciting issue. I'm getting used to Dave Cockrum again. After having John Byrne, going back to Dave Cockrum, but he's growing into me. But eventually he does leave, and then things will actually start getting better with oh my goodness gracious, Paul Smith. I'm sorry, I just drew a blank. Paul Smith, and then John Romita Jr. does come over. So X-Men 154. So like and subscribe, and I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.